Hey there, Monica Reyes back. Today, we're gonna talk about how to get over being a perfectionist, and make sure to make it all the way through to the end, because not only am I gonna tell you how this may be showing up in your life, why this might have formed, I'm also going to work you through my 5-step process that you can work through along to break through perfectionism for good. All right, so why might you be a perfectionist? Perfectionism is, in essence, the need to be perfect. It is the fear of being human, the fear of flaws, the fear of experiencing harsh judgment, criticism, ridicule, for flaws, mistakes, failure, any of that sort of thing. And it is a distortion because it's impossible to be perfect, right? Although part of you might feel otherwise, and I can tell you from personal experience, I had this and little remnants pop up here and there, but I know exactly what to do now. And you might not even, if you're a perfectionist or there's a part of you that's a perfectionist, you might not believe in unconditional love either, but you might feel that love is only given in condition or dependent upon some accomplishment, some accolade, maybe even your looks, which is why you might be perfecting yourself constantly. How this might be affecting you, you might feel overworked, you might be burnt out, you might be really hard on yourself, even though you're afraid of the harsh criticism. You yourself give yourself the harsh criticism. You're probably your worst critic. You might also find your worthiness in productivity. So there is not a lot of being that is being done. There's probably a lot of doing. You're like a little hamster working your butt off all the time for love and approval and significance. And yeah, those are usually the symptoms of being a perfectionist. And it's really hard for you to deal with mistakes. It's really hard for you to deal with failure. It probably lingers for a long time, in order for you to shake it off. You might even have stopped doing some things, activities, because of fear of failing, a fear of making mistakes, a fear of the judgment. You may not follow through, and you may have stopped because maybe you weren't so good and the learning curve scares the crap out of you. All right, so how do you become a perfectionist? So this is a characteristic of your personality, and what likely happened between the ages of 0 to 7 is you might have experienced a set of circumstances on a repetitive way, like so over and over and over and over and over again, which is why it became a part of you. And so some of the things you might have experienced was maybe you had a judgmental parent, maybe you experienced harsh criticism or ridicule from a parent or an influential adult. I've seen this present itself through even a teacher, somebody I know that I worked with had something like that. So something along those lines of experiencing, you might have had a big failure or some sort of life event, a bankruptcy, something that experienced a lot of shame. So there's pain associated with there's pain associated with the failure or the not being perfect. And so you basically became perfect to avoid that pain. I've also seen this present itself where parents were fighting and child overheard parent fight about the child, and the child became perfect so that the parents wouldn't fight anymore. And obviously the parents were not only fighting, the child had nothing to do with that. It was simply one thing that they were fighting about, but it was enough for this child to have completely created, adapted to the environment, and ultimately became an adult who now struggles from perfectionism. So that's what happens. It's we adapt to our environment in order to create the harmony or the unification, whatever we need to feel so that we can continue to feel loved. We can continue to feel, because when we're criticized, that does not feel like love. And so you likely became perfect, tried to become perfect so that you can get love, because I bet you most likely had it was a big difference probably from like the ridicule to like, oh, great job, and you got the reassurance and the recognition and the significance, and you got all of those needs met. It was probably might have even gotten some certainty even, because if you were not sure how your parent was going to, experience you, unpredictability, or maybe they were upset at you, and the perfectionism created a lot of certainty for you. So you knew, if I am good and I do well and I do only well, I will get this version of my parent. And if I don't do that, I don't know who I'm getting. So it might have been also something stemmed from safety, security, and certainty. I've also seen this present itself when there is a sibling who is experiencing behavioral problems, or maybe it's autism, or something that's very disruptive to the family unit, and maybe it's messy, maybe it's behavioral problems, it's part of this child got into a lot of trouble, and you might have, if this was your sibling, then you were the golden child, and you were the opposite of it, and so you held that identity because, again, you got love and you just didn't want to be that, and so you're like, I'm gonna do everything not to be that. And so it was like a symbolism for what you didn't want, and ultimately became who you are. And now you have this mask of like, I've got to be perfect. I can't let anybody see me. Can't let anybody see the authentic me, the messy me, the human me, or else I'm afraid that my mom or my dad won't love me. And that's ultimately what this stems down to. And so how do we work through this? So I have a 5-step process that I use for all of these adaptive identities. And it's important to work through this because it likely is affecting your life. And it's a younger part of you. And so that's really important to know, because as you're working through this process, it's really what's going to help you through this is going to be a lot of love. And it might be hard in this particular situation to unconditionally love the messy part of you, the human part of you, because you've been trained not to, right? You've been trained that that's no good. So it's going to take some work. And the other thing we want to do is to be gentle with yourself, because this is a lifelong journey. Although we're going to be working through this 5-step process together, you're probably going to have to come back and do this over and over and over again, and know that there is no magic bullet. Okay, there is no magic bullet, that this is a lifelong journey. The universe is going to provide you with everything you need, meaning it's going to provide you with all the life events, all the people to trigger that part of you so it can come up, because if it's in the unconscious, then you can't deal with it as easily that if it's in the conscious. And that's what this process does, is it removes the unconscious into the conscious so that you can see it, you can experience it, and then you can work your way through it. But just know that the universe will send you likely initiations, because talking about it, thinking about it is one thing, but embodying it is another. So you'll be asked, you'll be called forward to step forward to do and act and live in a certain way that is aligned with you moving through this perfectionism. So just throwing that out there that may happen. All right, step number 1 is awareness. It's ultimately what we're doing is we're recognizing this part of us. And that's the key thing, that it is a part of you. It is not you. It is not the whole you. It is just a part of you, right? The whole you is awareness. It's boundless consciousness. You are all of it and none of it at the same time. And there's also the higher self of you, right? The part of you that's the witness, and that's that loving observer. But this is just a small part of you. It is an adaptive identity, also known as a subpersonality, that has hijacked your psychological function. So it's hijacked your thinking, your emotions, your sensations, your impulses, your desires, your imagination, your intuition. And which is why sometimes it's like, oh my God, why did I do that again? Why am I burning myself out? I can't stop. Why can't I stop working? Why, it's hard. It's hard to slow down because it's unconscious. And so what we want to do is we want to be more conscious about it. And if you haven't already started meditating, I didn't add that into the original scripts, but meditation is going to help you here, because you want to be able to catch the perfectionist in action, and meditation will develop that part of your brain to bring you more awareness, be able to stop, to catch yourself in the middle of the reaction. All right, so number 1, awareness, recognizing. And the more that you recognize this as a part of you, then the more that you can disidentify from it. So you want to ask questions, journal questions, and ask questions of like, why are you here? How did you when did you show up? When did I start? What was the age? Was there a significant life event that caused me to do this? Kind of like the parents arguing. Can you get down to that level of detail? It's all important information. If this was a character, what would it look like? What kind of worldview and belief systems do you hold? When does the perfectionist show up? Are there specific events and situations and people that trigger the perfectionist more? And so if you know that, then you can be very intentional about it, because then what you can do is, like, before you go into the meeting that the perfectionist shows up in, then you can kind of, let me talk to this part of me, let me tap in real quick so that I can feel the safety, the love, whatever it is that I need, the certainty, so that I can show up in my wholeness. I can show up as an adult rather than showing up as a perfectionist. And the more and more that you do that, the more and more you disidentify from the perfectionist, because it's not I am a perfectionist. And I invite you not to say that, because you're defining yourself and you're also not allowing anything else to be real. As creators of a reality, we don't want to do that. So my perfectionist is here. I'm creating space, and I'm witnessing and showing up and seeing the perfectionism in action. That's what we want to get to. How is it serving you? How is it limiting you? The second step is going to be acceptance. And so accepting that it's here, accepting all the choices that you made, accepting that the childhood that you might have had, there are no perfect childhoods. It's impossible, because parenting is a developmental stage. And so really providing yourself with that acceptance and surrender and unconditional love, and seeing if you can let go of the past, seeing the past for what it really is. It's a resource, and trusting that the perfect divine orchestration of your life, and that your spirit having a human experience, and that life gave you the exact recipe you needed in order for you to prepare you for your big mission in this world. And this is a part of it too. Step number 3 is what's called coordination, and it is creating a partnership. And so in essence, there's a myth of let me eliminate this part of me, let me eradicate, let me kill this part of me off. And we don't want to do that, because you'd be killing a part of you off. But what you want to do is you want to create a partnership with it. And that has really worked really well for myself and my clients. This is a system that has been around for 100 years. It's a really powerful framework. So creating a partnership. So asking it, what do you need? Why are you here, perfectionist? What are you trying to get? Every time that I am perfect, and every time that I work my butt off and I'm overly productive and I'm trying to be perfect, I get something, right? And at the beginning of the video, I talked about the love and the security and the certainty. What am I getting? Am I getting significance? What am I getting? And then from that point, once you figure out what that need is, how can I provide that to myself in a healthy, balanced way? And figuring out practical ways that you can do that, things that you can put into your day, maybe, in your morning ritual throughout the day, that you can do so that you can provide yourself with that need and taking the time. Otherwise, this will continue to hijack you. Now, the minute that you provide yourself with that need, it will no longer desperately be trying to get it from outside. And what'll happen then is it'll become more what's called integrated, which is going to be step number 4. Step number 4 is integration. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to ask, what is the quality under perfectionism, right? And so for me, what I did was I redefined perfectionism to committed to excellence, because that's ultimately what I saw it as. I really like to be excellent. I want to be known for excellent quality. I want to be known, I want to continue to get, I want my reputation to signify that. And so that was really important for me as I was working through my own perfectionism. And so, what is the quality that you want, because there is a very beautiful quality underneath this, and it's just become distorted. So once you figure whatever that is out, it could be excellence, it could be, maybe it's the drive that it gives you, maybe it provides you some sort of motivation. There's something here as to what it might mean for you. And then what would it look like then from there, from an integrated standpoint of that balanced quality. Let's just use my example of excellence. And then also the quality of providing myself with that need. So if for me, I was a perfectionist because I needed reassurance, approval. I didn't want judgment and so forth. So I gave myself that. I stopped judging myself. I started unconditionally loving myself. So as what would it look like for me in the world if I was unconditionally loving myself? I was giving myself all the approval. I wasn't judging myself, and I was providing excellence. What does that look like? What does that version of me look like? And then taking action in that way, from that place, right? And journaling around that. What does that feel like? Visualizing yourself as that version. What does she dress like? What does she do? Because perfectionism is not doing things for you. You're working your butt off to be perfect for everyone else. And so now you get to be whoever the hell you want to be, and that's exciting. It's freedom. It's liberating. You're no longer in your own cage. You're now free to do whatever you want. And so for me, that ultimately led me into a path of singing. I've been singing, I've been taking singing lessons, and doing the things that I want, because I'm no longer in my own cage. And after integration, the last step is going to be synthesis. That's ultimately where we want to get to. Synthesis is ultimately wholeness. Now there's no longer a perfectionist. You're not balancing between identities. Now it's only the quality. So it's just excellence, and you're unconditionally loving yourself. You have been on this track for a while now. You're providing yourself this every day on a consistent basis. And now you're no longer needing that need on the outside. And that's the journey. That's the journey to overcome perfectionism. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please like, please subscribe, please share. Comment below let me know your favorite part about it, if there was a step that you felt very excited to try. And I will see you next time. Take care.